how you view certifications. That is a key part of the things that we do professionally. And we're here together just to kind of just talk about it, right? Kind of give you guys some more some valuable information on what they are, how they can be helpful, the path you can take for your professional career, and just kind of field general questions and be able to help, because kind of going and asking on the internet can just lead you to a rabbit hole that never actually answers your true question. And that's what we hope to do. So I'm Mitch Rabsat. I'm helping MC. I'm going to let the other folks who help organize the group and keep it functioning introduce themselves, and then we'll get into the presentation.
Perfect. Rohit, do you want to do an intro real quick? We'll go in the order that's shown on the screen.
Yeah, sure. Hey guys, my name is Rohit. I work as senior cloud engineer, primarily in AWS. I work with a company in Bonita Springs called Work Rentals. I have been with the company for almost 3 years now, and I take care of all the production workloads in AWS, Azure, and GCP.
Awesome. Thank you, Rohit. Hi, my name is Sam Kasimalla. I've been a co-organizer of this AWS user group since a long time, since the days of Jeff, I think before COVID. So after Jeff left, I stepped down from Meetup for a little bit and came back. So I've been in the ecosystem for a pretty long time. I'm also an ex-AWS employee. I've had a bunch of certifications. I forget the exact count now. But I've done all the important certifications in AWS. Yeah, now for work, I run a tech services company with about 40 plus employees. And yeah, we do some AWS work. Most of our work is low tech, but we also do some AWS work. Yep, thank you. David, do you want to go?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me and team to co-host. Subtract 2 years from today, I was at AWS for 5 years. I had various roles, from a technical account manager to a solution architect. I worked on multiple service teams on the go-to-market side, so essentially help evangelizing services at different summits and working with customers, taking those services to POC to production. I now work for an AWS partner, ClearScale. For the last 2 years, I'm director of migrations, or head of migrations, over engineering as well as our solution architects. From a certification standpoint, I had 8 when I was at AWS. I let them lapse. This year, I'm recertifying. I'm at 4 at present, looking to get more, but happy to kind of shed my knowledge on what I've learned along the way.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
So as we get into this, I'll ask that if you have any questions along the way, just put it in the chat, and then we'll get to them as we can, as opposed to just asking in between. So just kind of refrain from asking questions on the mic. Just put them in the chat. We'll get to them. So we'll start.
With that, I'm going to take over the presentation. Give me one moment. And if I've done that right, you should be able to see my screen. Kind of just get a yay or nay. Awesome. Thank you for the thumbs up, everyone. So what are we going to cover today? I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. One, why get certified? We want to go over the reasons behind it. And I think everyone's reason for getting certified is going to be a little bit different. But how can it help with your career progression? That's something we would like to close out. And there shouldn't be any questions around that towards the end of the day. And as far as like what I mean, as far as why you would get certified, I can say for myself, back before I was working at AWS, I really just wanted to dive in more and really understand the services at more depth. Where I'm at right now, it's more about, from an AWS partner, we have so many certifications that we need to uphold for our premier partnership. So it's not just myself, my SAs, my engineering team. We have a bar across the board that they need to maintain X amount of certifications. We want to talk about the different paths, the different certs, how you can go about studying. These exams can also be pricey. How can you minimize the cost and the costs that are associated? I was a former bar raiser with AWS, so I want to talk about what I would look at when I was bringing candidates in and interviewing them, and the key talking points that kind of assisted with people that had certs versus not. There's also a new process with Skill Builder on renewing your certs. And if you have all the certs, you should also know about the Golden Jacket, as well as the various career paths that are associated with the certifications. Again, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We have that monitored, and I'm going to move on. I think the biggest thing from a certification that I kind of wanted to drive home is, for myself, it was really a forcing function. It was never the finish line. It was more about the process of studying and actually learning versus the end result. If I tie it back to Amazon's leadership principles, if you're not aware, one of their leadership principles is learn and be curious. That has always resonated with me. I think if we are in a time, especially with AI, if we're not staying on top of things, at that point, you will get left behind. And if I even look at the reInvent speech that Werner did in regards to time travel and going back in regards to Cobalt code, I can't talk. Look at those engineers. They had to evolve. They had to learn new code. Otherwise, they were going to get left behind. This is a repeated process through the tech industry. So staying teachable, not any of us are going to know everything. And that's also something I want to point out too. You can have all of the AWS certs and you still may not know everything about a particular service. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I have a certification. That means from a prerequisite at this job interview that I'm good to go. But at the same point, you could go into an interview and completely flop that interview because the questions have nothing to do with the services that you've learned or the depth that that service was even being tested against. So again, a double-edged sword. The certs get you to a point, but it's really on you to fully understand the services that are in front of you. This gives you some credibility, but at the same point, it opens up the door for that interviewer to then ask more rigorous questions to really test to make sure that you know those certifications. So there's different paths with the certifications. If you're not familiar, I'm going to kind of go over how I view the different levels. But high level, you have the foundational. That's going to be the easiest. Then it goes progressively a little bit more difficult until you get to the professional and the specialty. The difference between these, the amount of questions, foundational, you have 65 questions, 90 minutes. This exam at the foundation level will maybe be one sentence long, and then the answers will be just 1 or 2 words, and then you have to pick. There might be some multiple choice questions as far as picking like 2 out of the 4 versus 1 out of the 4. But my point is, it's very streamlined. In that 90 minutes, you can easily read the 65 one-liner questions. The associate, it gets a little bit more difficult from a time management. You can have 1 to 2 lines, a paragraph for the question, and then the answer be more than a word or even a sentence. And each response may have 1 or 2 words differentiating them between the two, and you have to figure out what's the best solution. There may be more than one right answer, but what's the best overall solution based on AWS best practices? Then from the professional and security, as far as like a level of difficulty, I really view these as being one and the same. It's not so much for myself. Again, what works for me may not work for you, but for myself, it's less about the content and it's more about the time management in that test. These questions will be anywhere from 2 to 3 paragraphs each. The answers can be 1 to 2 paragraphs each. If you have your answer bank being 1 or A through F, and then you have to distinguish between each of those and maybe 1 or 2 words difference in those paragraphs, it becomes a time management piece for you not spending more than 2 to 3 minutes on that question and then moving on, especially with the fact that it's 180 minutes and 75 questions. I hope that makes sense. That's how I view these. Not to say the foundations are super easy versus the professional being difficult. It's just the concepts are different. The level of technical difficulty at the professional and security, they'll be asking you questions in the professional and security based on a particular FAQ question on the service page, and really diving into a very technical piece, versus the foundational is going to be more high level, more overview. Like, view it as like 100 level from the foundation, and then the security and specialty is that 400 plus, very difficult. As far as the certifications, this lists out the different certifications at each of those levels. So prior to a couple of years ago, there was a single foundational. They have expanded that to the AI practice as well. And then even at the associate, they now have a machine learning. They dropped the machine learning at the specialty level. But what's also important to call out here is the advanced networking. This one, in many circles, is valued at one of the most difficult AWS tests. I have not sat that exam. I have not had that honor, but that certification is also dropping August 25th, I believe it says very smallly in that on that slide. There's now 3 professional exams besides the solution architect, the DevOps engineer, and now the generative AI. If you've seen what I'm getting at from the AI standpoint, now they have a practitioner, they have the associate, as well as professional. A lot of the material from the foundational to the associate to the professional will overlap. So if you are planning on getting certified, it's advantageous if you start with the practitioner, move to the associate, and then the professional. There's going to be overlap between. There's even overlap from the SA architect associate to the developer, and even the cloud ops engineer. The cloud ops engineer is the former sysops associate, but there's, I would say, 20 to 40% of what's on those 3 overlap. So the group of those associates, if you are studying and planning to obtain them, if you do it very close to each other, you're not going to have to study as much or dive into each subject matter as much as if you are, let's say, then switching topics altogether and going down the AI track with the practitioner, the machine learning, and then that professional. I would do the same strategy if I was more interested in that line of those 3 certs. Those are also going to build on each other and really kind of play one into the other. Again, it just makes the whole studying process a lot more streamlined. As far as the different ways to study, again, this is kind of a plethora. I'll talk about what works for me when I'm sitting an exam. But AWS has their skill builder. They have been revamping it. Sometimes I don't think the material is as deep as it could be with, like, let's say, Pluralsight or Udemy or the Wiz Labs, but it's getting better. And they have virtual environments now, which is cool, because if you are going to be doing the hands-on, then at that point you can leverage the skill builder environment. And I think for using that, it does require a subscription, but there's also a free version. I would also heavily take a look at the white pages, the FAQs across the different services, and whatever domain you're looking to study. Wiz Labs is a platform practice test. It's not like where you're going out and just cramming based on the answers and memorizing the questions that are on the exam. This is more of a platform for you answer the question wrong, and it now gives you a page of documentation on why you answered it wrong and the supporting documentation on what the right answer is, including the AWS FAQ, white pages, any source material. And for myself, I really like this methodology because then I can test myself and at the same point study, because then I'm actually getting pointed at what the right answers will be, as well as those documentations back to the white pages and FAQs, if that makes sense. Udemy and Pluralsight, I really view these as the same. Very good video study guides for diving into the services themselves, understanding what you're going to be tested on, and going over the services at that level. I don't think anything, though, really replaces hands-on experience. Getting into the AWS console and understanding these services and spinning them up, breaking them, and then learning how to fix them, I don't think anything will ever replace that, for myself at least. That level of depth has been instrumental at any of the professional or security level certs that I have taken. And then the last one I want to talk about is I have a team of PMs, and with them, I've been kind of changing how I've been studying. I'm not so much using WizLabs as much as I used to. I'm actually using Claude as well as ChatGPT to create flashcards based on the AWS documentation for a particular exam. Something that I can then download in an HTML format, have it on my phone, and let's say while I'm in an airport where I'm about to board a plane, I can sit there and almost like gamify studying for the exams based on the flashcards that the AI assistant was able to create for me. We've also created skills within our organization to help other SAs or other developers get up to speed with taking the test quickly based on one or two of us kind of preempting a prompt and then taking that prompt and the curriculum that it creates and then leveraging that successfully and then using that with others. All right, so switching up a little bit, talking about the costs that are associated with the exam. Fundamental is going to run you $100, the associate $150, the professional and security come in at $300. Now, keep in mind, if you pass the exam, your account also gets a voucher code for 50% off your next exam. So if you were looking at, let's say, going out and getting multiple certs, this is a way to minimize those costs that are associated with the test. I just used 2 of these earlier today to book my next exams. And one thing I was interested in is the code that I got for the foundational was still able to get me 50% off the higher certs. I mean, the associate level code got me off the professional and specialty, if that makes sense. So it's not limited to that particular cost tier that you passed with. So coming from Amazon, I was very much interested in becoming a bar raiser based on my bar raiser experience. If you're not familiar with the bar raiser, when you're going into your Amazon loop for the hiring process, that is an individual that kind of takes a step back, really works with the hiring manager, works with the tech evaluators, which usually there's multiple, and then really drives the conversation on it. If this individual has raised the bar, hence the bar raiser term, at the hiring bar as far as coming into the org, is this individual better than 50% of the team that we currently have? So my point with this is, from a hiring manager standpoint, as well as from a bar raiser, what would I look at with someone that was certified? One, it completely resonates with the learn and be curious leadership principle. If you have multiple certs, you are showing us that you can go out and you can study, and not only study, but then pass the exam, which is valuable. But at the same point, kind of with what I was talking about earlier, it's a double-edged sword to the point where now that you have this knowledge, I expect your level of knowledge to be above other individuals that, let's say, don't have the certification. So I'm not saying that I would use it against them by any means, but I expect that level of, from that bar, to be higher for those individuals. Sorry for the bar references. I just trying to make this easy for you to understand like how I would actually view it. At the same point, it became easy to have those discussions with those individuals that were going out and getting those certs, because not only could they prove that they knew the skills, but at the same point, they usually came with stories on how that certification, they were able to then leverage it in their job. So my point is, don't just go out and get the cert. How can then you then apply it to your existing role and then tell that story from end to end? Because that's the story that the bar raiser is going to want to question you and really dive into and probe in the interviews. And I do that not just when I was at AWS, but where I'm at now with ClearScale, I do the same thing. So I hope that helps level set as far as the value that a certification brings. And then this is new. So this year, this last month, they essentially have updated Skill Builder. This is not available for every cert. I should have listed the ones that it's available for. But essentially, you're able to go out and pay for a subscription of Skill Builder. It's $30 for individual, and then you can have a minimum of 5 seats at a corp license, like a corporation license. But let's say I pay for it. My cert's about to expire within 90 days. I can then take the skill builder courses that are associated with that particular cert. And let's say for all intents purposes, the solution architect professional is on the list. One of my SAs just did this where he signed up $30, took several hours worth of the skill builders training, and now he's extended his certification beyond the 3 years and now has a 4th year. And I just found this out today talking with my partner solution architect. They're not limiting it at that 4 year. So towards that 90 days at the end of the other 4th year, well, then there'll be more additional trainings that you can then go through, take those trainings and extend it. The idea behind this, I love, because that means as someone that let all of his certs expire because I was, in all intents purposes, lazy and didn't recertify and want to take the test, this is the perfect avenue for that individual. I would happily sit a course for a couple of hours versus the professional level cert does require more, in my case, studying time than those 2 hours. So I love this idea. I like what Amazon is doing here. And then one other point before I turn it over is this also allows an organization to have those 5 seats, but they can rotate those seats amongst the individuals on their team. So if they have X individual that's expiring this month, well, then that individual can have the seat this month. And then instead of canceling, you simply rotate it to another individual that can then go through the same training based on when their cert is expiring. So even from like an organization standpoint, I think what they're doing, and it's in the beta stage right now, so they're open to feedback, but I think it's actually coming along quite well, at least from the experience that we've seen. And with that, I am going to turn it over.
Okay, so let me share my screen real quick. If I do this right, you guys should be able to see.
We can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So we covered this. Yeah. So the infamous golden jacket. So if you happen to hold all the 12 active certifications that David went through in his previous slides, this is what you get. Fancy golden jacket, looks pretty cool. And the most awesome part about it is the fact that there are only 0.01% of people holding that jacket in the whole wide world. So it's pretty special. And also the effort that goes into getting all the 12 certifications, it's definitely not an easy task to do. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. There's a lot of time that you have to spend to learn those resources. And as David mentioned, you can still have a golden jacket and still flop an interview. So be careful and have that hands-on experience and everything sorted out before you go for an interview and tell that you have a golden jacket. So moving on. Yeah. So the effective study plan. So I recently got my AWS certified security specialty in May, actually. And as we've covered in previous slides, I usually used Claude to create an application for me that will help me prepare for the exam. So what I did is I took all the practice questions in which there was the functionality that was missing from those tests was that they didn't have a timer and so that I can actually replicate an exam. So what I did is I took the screenshots of all the questions, put it in Claude, and have it prepare a static web app and prepare all the questions with, maybe I'll tell Claude to like jumble the answers and all of that stuff, actually replicate a whole simulation for an exam. So that's how I did. That was one of the ways that Claude has actually helped me. Apart from giving reasons as to why an answer is right or why an answer is wrong, please use those kind of AI tools to have those have a certain sort of explanation which makes it easy for you to understand. But again, do fact check. Don't trust all the AI answers. Whatever AI says, do your fact checks again and again. So whenever you start for any of the certs, whenever you plan that, first thing I think that we should mention over here is to book the date. If you don't book your exam, you're never gonna be serious about it. So always the first step is book the exam before even you begin preparing, so that at the back of your head you're like, yeah, that's the date, that's my deadline, I have to get that sorted out. So check the domains. I usually go through all the study plan that AWS releases for every certification. I usually go through all the domains of those. So when you have like hands-on experience, you would know some of these domains. You work with them day in and day out. So you have some sort of confidence that comes with, let's say, IAM. And if you're provisioning users, playing around with roles, policies, trusted domains, and all of that stuff, that could be easy for you. So it's good to always rank your domains and spend time in certain way that will help you boost the other domains and have that level of confidence when it comes to giving the exam. So every day, like I know it gets really hectic if you have a 9 to 5. People, I bet a lot of us here sit in deployments, late night deployments, and all that kind of stuff. So sort out your calendar. Just spend 30 to 45 minutes a day. Every small practice session is a progress towards a certification. So it's the consistency that matters the most. And whenever you give a practice exam, do make sure that you're noting down why a few things went wrong. Because you would want to know, like, if you give a wrong answer to a question, that's fine. This is not a real exam, but then that'll help you understand, most importantly, the way you need to think for those kind of questions. So a lot of these questions, as David said, they're 2 paragraphs long. When I took my specialty, there were a lot of questions in which it had 1 to 1.5 paragraph of question with equal size answers. And the worst part is all the 4 answers are right. Then you have to choose one that suits the use case for that. So that's what is the most difficult part that I felt from the security specialty which I took. But then that comes with practice. You should have practice to manage your time. You should be able to remove the fluff from those questions because it is there to confuse you. But then at the same time, grasp the main parts that you really need. And then, and one other important thing that I would like to mention is the process of elimination. Try to do that as much as you can. If all your 4 answers are right, good luck with that. You'll have to find a way to get a right answer. But then mostly process of elimination definitely works. So hands-on versus certifications. We know certification can get you only so far, but then the hands-on experience, which you you need to put a lot of effort on, definitely test the real depth. So even now, though I work with AWS day in day out, I still have my home lab in AWS spun up. So whenever if I'm working on a project or something, I try to replicate as much as I can. That gives me a certain understanding of, hey, I can do this with it. I can try working with different kind of solutions or different services that can fit the use case. That definitely proves that you have depth, and getting hands-on, for sure, there is nothing like it. And that'll actually help you with the certifications as well. And when you spin up your home lab, please do delete your resources. You don't want the bill blowing up at the end of your month on your face and be a shocker for you. So please clean up um, your accounts or any of the resources that you spin up. I know those kind of Bedrock, SageMaker notebooks and all that, they can be pretty expensive. They're pretty huge notebooks with a lot of compute that is going to ask a lot of money from your credit card. So be careful with that. So some of the myths that people often we see coming from people in Reddit posts or whatever is, I'll cram a week before exam. Definitely that doesn't work. it may work for a cloud practitioner because that's super foundational. Probably you can get it within a week, but then the others, there's no way it isn't going to work out. So take your time. Whenever you want to sit for a certification or anything, get proper training, practice the questions and everything, and then pass the certification. And also certificate dumps. Another thing is that people often assume that go through these dumps and then I'll pass the exam. But as David mentioned, what's the point? If you can't prove you have the depth of knowledge, there's no point in having a certification. So do always have that hands-on experience along with the the certification that you have. So only getting a lot of certifications definitely helps. It is going to be a check mark on your from your resume on for the job that you're applying for sure. But you still have to have the knowledge to prove that you actually know those kind of things. One other thing that I would want to mention is that um, I'll try to do projects and post them on GitHub. That is actually really helpful. That shows that you have an online presence. You contribute to open source. That way, nowadays, being a cloud engineer, I don't know a whole lot of React and all the web related frameworks that we use. But then with Cloud Code, we definitely have the ability to build web apps to solve bigger problems in engineering. So we can solve a lot of infrastructure related problems through apps that we can build. So those are the kind of experiences that show that you have real world knowledge and you understand. You're not just talking whatever, but you know what you're talking about. So that goes a really long way. So where each cert can take you for sure, cloud practitioner to begin with. It's a foundational one, very not a whole lot of depth, but then it's like an overview of all the services that you have in AWS that can definitely help you for a support engineer or an administrator role where you are like level one, just take on those things and try to remediate if you can and work on those tickets. So the associate takes a little bit of an effort to get to, which lands us with solutions architect or developer, software developer, cloud ops engineer, those kind of roles, and professional ones where these require I don't want to say these require experience, but I've seen people with not a whole lot of experience get professional certs as well. But then the roles as staff architect or senior architect, those kind of roles do take experience. But then again, having a certification is definitely something that is really good on your resume. It makes you more marketable for sure. And the specialty ones, we have it for security, data, and networking. I know networking is decommissioning their networking cert. Really excited to see where that goes. But then those help you land roles for principal architect or security or ML engineer. So with this, I will hand it over to Mitch to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Rohit. So just to piggyback on what we were talking about with the certification path per position, as Rohit was going into, the next few slides is just going to be a broad brush on some of the positions that will have a certification path. So starting with the solutions architect, and this is what that path will look like. If you're new to AWS and you're not too familiar with the resource names, maybe you do have some cloud experience, but you just need to kind of have an idea what exactly are the resource names in AWS. A cloud practitioner might be useful, or you can just jump straight in and just start with the solutions architect associate, followed by advanced positions, which is the solutions architect professional, as well as security as a helpful certification. Security is a well-architected pillar. So in your journey through these certifications, you will know what those pillars are. And no matter which certification that you take, there's always a section on security. How do you secure whatever resource you're doing? Or how do you build resilient applications in a secure manner? So that's something that's going to come up a lot, and that's no exception for a solutions architect role. Next thing is a systems admin. This is what that path would look like. Again, the cloud practitioner is there just in case you just don't know what those resources are, but then from there you're going through that path. And sure enough, there it is again, that security. You have to be able to build those secure systems. Cloud security engineer, this is what that path would look like. So if anyone is willing to explore or want to explore, these are the path. We'll be sharing these slides, so don't feel that you have to rush and write these things down. We will be sharing some of these with you all. So cloud engineer, this is what it looks like. You're gonna need that solutions architect and that sysadmin associate, followed by that DevOps engineer professional. Same thing here. And then, like I said, some of these have a little bit of overlap because they're touching on some of those key aspects on building resilient applications. I kept this network architect, sorry, this advanced network specialty there. In the past, the previous one was a machine learning specialty, and they removed it, and then they made that an associate certification. So, like we mentioned before, that this advanced networking specialty will be deprecated, but I'm pretty sure, based off of what we know about the well architect pillars, is not something that's just going to go away and they're not going to not replace it. There will be a replacement. So for now, this is just a placeholder, and whatever that replacement will be, if you are pursuing a network engineer position, you will just kind of place that there as your next step. I know we have a lot of software developers in our community, and this is what it looks like. No surprise that Gen AI is a topic, because that's something that's touching everyone's career field. No matter what you're in, there has to be some level of Gen AI in your workflow or in your application development process. So that's no surprise. Data scientist, woohoo! I'm a data scientist, so I love this. Right? Again, the whole entire field has changed from what was traditionally a data scientist back then to what it is now. And again, this position is no exception to the changing and adoption of AI. So again, you have your AI practitioner, if you're not too familiar with the AWS specific AI resources, and then from there you can jump right into your machine learning associate, and then transition to your Gen AI developer, followed by data engineering as an advanced certification. And the same thing for machine learning. I think we touched on some of this, on where to go from here. So we'll slide into some resources. One of the resources that will kind of be helpful outside of this talk, because yes, we'll still be here to support you all in the community, but at the same time, you guys will need some resource that you can kind of refer to on a regular basis. And for all its negativity, Reddit is a wonderful resource, because there's individuals who have questions, who share the recent news, everything that's associated with AWS certification, or even so AWS is in and of itself. And that group is well moderated. I'm on there. I ask my questions. I look at the resources and stuff that's available, and they have everything from where you can find vouchers and discounts for 2026. Simple things as how long does it take to get your pass or fail? Because after you take your exam, sometimes it's not readily available. It takes anywhere between 24 and 48 hours. And that wait period, I swear, is probably like the worst wait period. I mean, studying is tough, but when you're done and you're like, all right, like, did I achieve whatever did I achieve? And then you're rethinking some of the questions, like, oh man, like maybe it was this or whatever. That wait period can be arduous, and it's tough. And they touch on the 50% on another exam and how to strategically use that. And then they have resources that breaks down from foundational level to associate level and professional level, as well as speciality. Just to kind of share what that looks like. So this is the Gen AI. You can't see. Let's see this. Something else. So this is the Gen AI frequently asked questions that's pinned on the AWS certification subreddit. And as you can see, it was updated 8 months ago, and it's actively being updated. And you can get almost every single thing, like, hey, your exam benefits. You get list of actively reviewed paid resources and the quality of them and where they fit your learning style. It just goes on. And this resource, like I said, we will still be here to support the community, but this resource is a resource that's being actively held together. And this could be a path that you can go to and kind of reference to on a regular basis.
Hey, Mitch, I want to chime in on the waiting for your results, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
This has kind of changed over the course of time too. So you used to be able to sit the exam and you'd present it even at the professional level after taking it with the results. I took the professional 3 months ago. I took it Friday. I ended up getting the results on Sunday. So that was a lot of fun. But also learned that from day to day, the score from the passing score, it's also a sliding bar. So let's say you take it on a day where not everyone does so well, or you take it on a day where everyone is a rock star and aces it. Well, that sliding scale for passing is going to affect your results as well, which is why for a lot of the specialty professional and even the associate now, they're not delivering the results right away.
Thank you for that.
The practitioner, they are doing those on the screen, but even to the point where the proctor like gave me a little spiel about not getting the results that day, which was unique for that professional. But it's interesting to know, if you are waiting, just be patient.
Thank you for that, David. I didn't know that that was a sliding scale and that was a contributing factor into the weight, right? And it totally makes sense. So even if you don't, how to say this, and try to somewhat still be optimistic, like it may be if you didn't pass that day, you could be part of those groups of rock stars, but just not, right? Because my God, man, David and his bars, that bar has been moved so far, you know? So try to take that and somewhat optimistic. And even if you don't pass, you continue to kind of be resilient on it, touch on the things that you missed, and then kind of go at it again. Don't just kind of give up on that one. So again, more resources. This is all going to be available for you folks. The slides and stuff to attend the meeting, just more free resources. Another thing is our hands-on community that's available for those who are looking for those hands-on experience while preparing for this stuff, as opposed to just either doing the video lectures or just doing practice exams. Hands-on is, as we've talked about before, is a wonderful learning tool. And then these are, as you go on your journey, you'll get familiar with a lot of these individuals. These are individuals who pour into the AWS community quite a bit. And depending on your learning style, you might pick one of these folks. But these folks kind of have paved the way in terms of educating a large majority of the folks in the AWS community. If you see anyone, even the individuals with golden jackets, they would say, hey, I've referenced at least one of these folks' materials to kind of help them study and get to where they're at. So just give them a look, give them a shot, and then from there, find the individual or the company that kind of fits your learning style. And once you find that group, then just kind of keep going with it. I think that's the end of the talk. I know we have some questions. Let's see here. This first question here is for you, David. This was during your talk. This is by Deshaun. Actually, he has quite a few. His first question is, do you have any tips or recommendations for people with disabilities or neurodivergent conditions such as ADHD when approaching the certification preparation portion?
Yeah, I have a couple of suggestions. So person view, I think I'm saying that properly. So they have special accommodations that you can essentially, when you're signing up for the certification, you can indicate that you need special requirements. And then at that point, I listed some of the special requirements in the chat on how they can accommodate. I would take it a step further though.
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear my kids in the background. I sat one of them in the house, and I'll never do it again. I take the extra step. I go to the certifications place, regardless of how I ask the kids to be quiet during those 2 hours. It just doesn't work well. Something happens in the house. I even have a folding table because if you're gonna sit the exam, you can't have anything on your desk. My desk has a lot of little knickknacks that I've collected at different summits. They all have to be removed. If you're using your laptop, you can't have an extra monitor. That has to be then unplugged. And I have a desk that then has the mount for the laptop screen. So then I have to show them. I was spending 30 to 45 minutes before the exam, like going over all of the check boxes that they have to go to make sure that it's a secure environment, that I'm not cheating. It's just so much easier for me to go in and just take the test. Sorry, I know that's like a long answer, but at the same point, they have accommodations based on needs. I don't know specifically what those are, Deshaun. Some of those were just that I Googled, so please look into that. But I do recall when I was signing up that is an option.
Well, for your long-winded answer, he has a long-winded question, so he's matching your energy. So just to add to that, he wants to know, are there any tools, resources, or accommodations of different learning approaches that you would go about preparing for the certification for, again, those individual with neurodivergent conditions? Do you have any suggestions for anyone, Rohit?
As I was saying, I kind of changed my study approach. I really like Whiz Labs. I like it because of the test. You can even do specialized tests. You know, the exam test itself is long, but you could do practice tests in their platform, and you can even specify the number of questions you want to be delivered to you during that session. So it's very customizable, and it gives you the answers to where if you answer wrong, it's a plethora a way to study in regards to, like, here's the FAQ. This is why you got it wrong. This is why this answer is right. But then, like, using the chatbots and the AI to where I can then leverage it on my phone, like, that's kind of changed like how I'm now not sitting in my office after hours. I can go and spend time with the kids and be with them and be in front of them, and then also be looking at that at the same time. That kind of has helped me to that extent.
So I do see Deshaun asked, what subreddits do you recommend for AWS stuff? So I would recommend first and foremost AWS itself. You'll get all the latest news on not just certifications, but just on anything that's happening in AWS. You're talking about conference, resource change, even, and some individuals will share their architecting approaches to certain type of applications. I kind of find those useful, as well as they'll post new white papers. I find those useful. So that's great. And obviously AWS certification subreddit that I just shared, because again, it's filled with individuals who are also trying to navigate the path, as well as individuals who love pouring into the community. And that's how that subreddit was created and kind of well maintained. And it's easy to navigate. Like I shared, those resources, they're pinned to the top. And from there, that after you click on the pin, you can kind of delve into the specific certification that you're trying to get into. And they have direct links to the author's resources and everything, as well as feedback as to, hey, why someone might prefer Stefan Maric teaching philosophy as opposed to Andrew's YouTube page, or even so a particular person that teaches more hands-on than the other. You know, so they kind of break down, and from there you read that and find out, hey, is that going to fit my learning style? Is that going to fit my time allowance that I have to this? You know, because that's a key thing. I mean, we all have lives outside of work, and we're trying to grow within this confine of work or at-home responsibilities, right? So time is a huge factor. So definitely give those a shout, and from there, delve into whatever profession you're in. I'm sure there's a subreddit for it, and then you can find the AWS community within your own profession. From there, I guess I'll leave the mic open for anyone else who wants to kind of ask questions directly as opposed to via chat. We still got some time.
First of all, it's a fantastic presentation, David, Rohit, and Michelle. I just have one question about the specialty certification. So, how would employers look or employers do take professional and specialty certifications into account when filtering candidates for a particular job or during the job interview process. Uh, do specialty take advantage over professional certs, or how would the difficulty of rating for a specialty and professional um, would an employer account when trying to apply for jobs or during the job interview process?
Hey, David, as a bar raiser, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can talk to it from a standpoint and also from a hiring manager standpoint. So I recently opened a solution architect role from a standpoint from the specialty versus the professional certs. One of the prereqs that I am looking for is a solution architect professional cert over the others. If someone had a specialty cert, I would most likely view that as equivalent of that professional cert. But being an AWS partner, the solution architects that I'm bringing in, and the reason that's a requirement is because we have X amount of certifications that we need to maintain on a yearly basis. So the individuals coming in need to already be at that level. As far as screening, I'm not a part of that process. That process is through HR itself. I usually get the candidates post screening, but that is a requirement that I have for that particular role. Then from the bar raising standpoint, I wouldn't necessarily view one cert as more valuable than the rest. I think they're all going to highlight a candidate's capability of learn and be curious. I think it then comes down to, let's say this particular role, let's say for all intents and purposes, let's use solution architect as an easy one, just because we were just talking about it. At Amazon, there are different levels of SAs. There is the SA that is at level 5 versus a senior who is at level 6 versus a it's escaping me, a principal level who is at level 7. The requirements from one of those to another isn't going to come down to certifications. That's going to be a piece. Between those different levels, it's going to come down to their impact and their impact that they have based on their stories that they're going to be telling in the interview. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but essentially what I'm saying from the bar raiser standpoint, when I was at Amazon, it really didn't matter. It was more of a data point for the learn and be curious LP. It then tied into the greater story of that candidate and the other stories that he was telling us.
Yeah, that answers my question, David. But what I'm trying to dig deeper is that, so let's say a candidate takes a professional cert, and other candidates takes a specialty cert. So if both the candidates apply to the same position, would specialty count as more professional experience than the professional cert during the filtering process or during the job interview process? So would that certs differ in amounts of professional experience in number of years?
I would view those certs, they're going to be one of the top tier of AWS certs. I don't really necessarily view them as being one better than the other. It's going to come down to that particular role, kind of like what Mitch said on the network engineering role itself. Like if I go back to a time where I was working with a particular customer that was very heavily in networking, that certification would have been more valuable than the solution architect for sure. But it kind of is going to depend on the role, depend on who's actually doing the hiring. In my eyes, from a level of difficulty, they're very similar. Different topics, yes, but at the same point, how is that cert actually helping them in their role with what they are doing, and how are they leveraging it to based on like the stories that they're telling in the interview? Like, does it have any benefit at all?
Okay.
From like a prerequisite, that's not going to filter someone out over someone that has a pro versus especially in my eyes, if I'm being honest. Now, if we get outside of like the partner that I'm with, we don't have any sort of like AI mechanisms for screening candidates. I think that's where you're going to run into difficulties with something like this, because it's not going to be the human that's deciding It's going to be that firm. Is this an SA Pro cert or not? And if so, it's not going to matter if you have a specialty cert.
Yeah, that's right.
And the sad truth is, there are organizations that are screening candidates with with AI bots, and if that is the case, that is going to be a little bit more of a difficult story. I hope that helps.
Yes, David. Yeah, that helps. Thanks so much.
But not all organizations are created equally. I'll say that too.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks again. Thanks so much.
No, thank you for the questions, and thank you for being here today.
Any more questions? We'll leave the mic open for a couple more minutes since we're a little bit over time, and then from there, we'll start the wrapping up process. Anyone else? All right, cool. Thank you guys for your time. I know it's late, it's evening, it's after work. There's other things to do, but I mean, you guys are curious, you guys care about the community, and you're joining and stuff. And we want to thank you all for your time, because your time is valuable. So thank you for showing help, supporting the community and stuff. The slides are in the chat, so you can go ahead and get those downloaded. If for some reason you can't download them or whatnot, just reach out to us via LinkedIn or Meetup. We'll get those to you, and get connected with us. Share it with your friends, the group. Get the exposure out so that we have more folks to kind of help pour value into and stuff. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys in the next meetup. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. This was very valuable.
Yep. Thank you for your time, guys. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.